think we will get started. As I can see so many people from around the world, I'll start today's session the way my phone answering machine works, which is good morning, afternoon, or evening. And welcome to Off the Cuff with Dr. Sue Johnson. I'm sure everyone is on the call right now is wondering who I am, so maybe I will introduce myself first. My name is Frederic Robinson, and I'm a director and editor, and have been working on EFT-related projects for some time now. Specifically, Sue and I have been working closely together over the last 18 months on a number of projects associated with EFT. And as to Sue, I'm sure everyone on this webinar knows who she is, but just in case you don't, Sue Johnson is a well-known psychologist, researcher, author, and relationship educator who has built many successful relationship education programs. One of her most popular and well-known books is Hold Me Tight. And Sue is also someone who has trained mental health professionals for many years. Now, the format for today's Off the Cuff will be as follows. As there are many questions regarding COVID-19 and how to deal with the situation when it comes to relationships, Sue and I are going to have an off-the-cuff chat, and afterwards we will open the floor to questions from all of you. To do this, please use the chat function and ask your question there. And if your question is chosen, we will unmute you so that you can ask your question and speak with Sue directly. And at all times, do please make sure that you're muted unless you've been asked to speak, just to keep the audio clean. So without further ado, I should mention one other thing. The session is also going to be recorded and made available for viewing later as well. All right, so let's get started. Sue, are you there?
Hello.
Oh, Sue!
Can you hear me? I've been sitting here saying, can you hear me? Can you hear me? No? Okay, whatever. Suddenly you can hear me. All right, jolly good.
Yes, now I can see you.
All right. And gave me a chance to go get a coffee. Hi there, how are you?
I am well. All of a sudden was in a bit of a panic going, well, let's see, this will be off the cuff with me.
Well, hey, you're delightful. I mean, you have lots of things to say. I'm sure that would be just fine and delightful. So
I've got to ask you first, how are you doing with your new puppy?
My new puppy, well, I was hoping people wouldn't notice. She's only been here 3 days, and she leapt up on the bed this morning and smacked me in the mouth. You probably can't see, but I've got a fat lip. But she's delightful, and it's helped in this situation. You know, it kind of brings you down to earth to put your new puppy on a lead and take her out for her first walk, and look at the new beautiful little lilies that I've never noticed before because I'm always working. Hey, look at the beautiful little lilies that have come up in this tiny little park. You know, I think one of the things that people are sharing, and what's helping in this situation, is people share beautiful images, they share songs, they share jokes, they share things that remind us that, you know, life is still good, and that, you know, this crisis isn't everything. It doesn't take over everything. So my puppy's beautiful. If she just wouldn't bounce up, and she's very bouncy. And also she, for the first 2 nights, she broke my heart because, you know, she misses all her little siblings, I guess, and so she's just crying and crying, and but she's calmed down. She gets that she's safe here with us. So thanks for asking. And I thinking about this call. I went on my new exercise bike this morning. I have a new exercise bike because I can't go to the gym, so I splurged and got myself a new spiffy exercise bike, which of course then I couldn't figure out how to use it, but I figured it out. So I'm on the bike this morning, pedaling away, listening to the ABBA song, what's it called? Give me a man after midnight, right? And I thought, oh, this is perfect, because when you first listen to that, it sounds like it's all about some sort of lady wanting wild sex. But actually, when you really listen to the words, it fits for what's happening right now in the world. It says, give me a man after midnight. Won't somebody take me through the darkness? Take me through the darkness to the edge of the day, right? Because I'm all alone here. So I thought, hey, this song fits with what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what's happening to people at this time when we're all, I think, much more aware of how vulnerable we are, and how much we need other people.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny you were mentioning sort of the good things that are happening. There's a channel that I've been following on YouTube that was done by John Krasinski, and he's created basically an in-home news channel called Some Good News, and he created it to really focus on all the good things that are happening during this time rather than the negative. And people from around the world are sending in their own videos and trying to be, Some Good News channel correspondents talking about good things that are happening in their area. And I just think it's wonderful because he's really sort of opened it up for everyone to kind of join him in his whole channel that he's created. And it's just really great to see people coming up with creative ways to, handle this situation.
Yeah, there was a lovely thing in the paper this morning about something called caring contacts, that people are actually setting up networks in my city to identify people who are alone, right? People who are particularly vulnerable, living alone, and linking them up with other people, and linking them up with people who will just contact them, who will call them once a day, who will say, hi, it's me, I'm Mary, how are you? I was thinking of you. I think we, in our regular lives, when this stuff isn't happening, we kind of, we underestimate, how powerful that connection can be. Hey, we've just got into this conversation. I thought we were supposed to talk about the fact that this is the first off the cuff, this is the first one of these conversations we're going to have. And we're going to include people asking questions, which I really like. I was on a radio show quite a lot in Ontario for a while, and I love the call-in. I love people asking questions. But this is the first off the cuff, and when we planned it, we didn't actually think anything. We didn't think we were going to be talking about a whole world in crisis, but we are. So whatever. So how's it feel, Freddie, to be doing the first off the cuff?
It's crazy. It's wonderful, and it's interesting because we weren't really sure what the first topic we would talk about would be, but like you said, I mean, it's very fitting right now because everyone is concerned about COVID-19 and them being in isolation or self-isolation, I should say. There's lots of different stresses and things that are, concerning people at this point. And I know that, there's a few questions that I certainly have to ask you first, and then maybe we can then open it up to everyone that's on this call.
Yeah, but I hope the people that are on the call kind of know who we are. Do they know that I've moved to the West Coast in the last year and a half, and that you've been wonderful working with me to make videos, and that I sort of grabbed you and forced you into doing off the cuff with me? I hope they don't know. They don't know you're a brilliant videographer and director of clips and things, right? And I hope they know a little bit about me. I'm a researcher and a teacher, and I travel around the world teaching professionals how to work with relationships. I write books about relationships. I wrote a book called Hold Me Tight about 10 years ago now, but it's that lovely little turquoise book is still flying off the shelves. I'm amazed. And so that's kind of who we are, right? And and the whole point here is to have fun and to connect with people in the general public who want to ask someone like me questions. That's the whole point. Have I missed anything? Is that sort of...
No, I don't think so. Actually, it was
You
very
were
funny.
supposed to do the intro, not me. Anyway, okay, all right.
I did do an intro, but then we didn't realize that you weren't actually on the call. But everyone now knows all the different things that you do and the reason for Off the Cuff. So I think we're ready to start. If you're ready to go.
Okay, go. We've
All right.
already been. We've already been talking, but you've got some questions, so ask them to me. Okay.
Okay, I will. Okay, so let's start really positively to begin with. I mean, what do you see folks doing that seems positive and likely to help them deal with this crisis well?
Oh, well, you know, it's sort of like hasn't been a choice we've made, but I think what this has done is kind of put the world on pause and slowed us all down from all the busyness and distractions that eat up our time in our life. And it's been clear in, you know, social scientists looking at this for years that we've spent less and less time basically being with people and interacting with people over the last, you know, 40 years, to the point where more and more of us talk about one of our big issues is loneliness, because we spend our time, you know, dashing from task to task. And what I'm seeing is that this has given people time. I'm seeing families on the beach with their kids, you know, whereas normally everyone would be at work, everyone would be busy. I'm seeing couples going out on the rocks where I live next to the sea and taking a picnic. You know, I'm hearing my clients say things like, well, it's funny because I've always wanted to be closer to my husband. I've never quite known how. And suddenly we're eating breakfast together, and you know what, it's nice. I like it. And hey, you know, he's been talking to me about all his projects, and I never knew how important they were to him. I never knew. We've got time to talk about things, and you know, and people are still doing things like FaceTime. For me, Easter was kind of a bummer. My family usually get together, and it really wasn't the same sitting with my husband and my one daughter who was in the house with us when all this started, so she's just stayed, right? The three of us, I mean, we tried our best, we told jokes, and the turkey was great, but it was kind of a bummer, you know, not to have people there, not to be with people.
Right. You know, you kind of said it there, where, you know, you're talking about how we need emotional connection to survive and thrive, and you always say that, you know, this is absolutely essential. But now we're in this social distancing and what that all means, and it's going to mean different things to different people. So
yeah,
are you hearing that it's hard for folks?
Well, I think the whole thing is bringing up for me kind of what's been clear for me all these years working with couples and teaching people how to work with couples and families, which is, you know, distancing is an interesting word. I mean, it's hard for us to be physically distant. It disrupts our life. You know, we can't go to work, we can't go out to restaurants, we have to stay away from family. But I think the key thing is it's really about emotional distance. And I think we can handle physical distancing. It's when we don't know how, we can't really connect emotionally with other people, that everything starts to fall apart for us, because we're bonding human beings. We need this connection with other people like we need oxygen. And lots of times we just kind of put that on one side. Don't pay attention to what I just said. Make it like an incidental in life. And it's not, it's an essential. You know, it's interesting, people are going on about what's essential. And everyone decided for some reason that it was toilet paper. I never got that. I don't understand, right? Like, what? I don't get it. But it's not toilet paper. And apparently some folks have decided it's guns. You know, how do you deal with your vulnerability? Well, one way is to say, oh my God, you know, I've got to protect myself. So sale of guns has gone up, toilet paper, hoarding, right? Oh, this is one way to deal with it. But I think the other more positive way is that it's teaching us how we really, our lives really are in other people's hands. our lives really are. We're on an island here. If the truckers stop coming, we starve, you know, and we know from our wonderful healthcare workers, you know, that any of us, we could have our life in those people's hands in a minute. And we know that we have to wash our hands, not just to save our own lives, but to save other people's lives. So I think the good thing is it's reminding us of how much we need other people, and it's reminding us to reach out to other people. You know, there's been some beautiful things, Frederic. I don't know if you saw at the beginning of all this, some Italians started going out on their balconies and singing to each other.
Yes, I did. I
mean, that was like so inspiring. And orchestras who are all isolated in their houses have been coming together and, singing, doing things like Amazing Grace, right? So, and then putting it out to everybody. I mean, these things put beauty together with sense of connection. But my son is suddenly FaceTiming me much more times, right, in a week. So I think there's positive things, reaching out to other people, recognizing our emotional needs. You know, the internet, which I'm always feeling like is the enemy of emotional connection between people, really, because it's so distracting. You know, people look at their cell phones rather than other people's faces. But in this case, the internet is kind of helping us come together, you know. And what's interesting to me is there's something really powerful. What the research says is you've got to see people's faces. You know, we know that we're bonding mammals, and when you look at somebody's face, you pick up their emotional cues in about 100 milliseconds. And in about another 300 milliseconds, your mirror neurons whirl around in your brain, and you feel in your body what you see on people's faces. So if we can keep the emotional connection, and maybe if we can even remember how this pause, our life going on pause, has actually told us that, you know, connection with other people is an essential, not an incidental. I think that's positive, and I think there's lots of positive things out there. I know that I know the lady next door lives by herself. I know she's in her 80s. I do think of her, actually, but, you know, I'm busy. So I've never really gone over, and, you know, in the last few months anyway, and said, hi, how you doing? This time I went over and put stickies all over her door and said, hi, you want to come and sit in the garden while I'm on the deck? You know, I'll make you tea. Hi, how you doing? Are you okay? And that doesn't just reassure her that someone's thinking of her and she's not alone in the world. It makes me feel good. I'm a bonding mammal. So when I reach out and care for somebody else, I get a little shot of a bonding hormone called oxytocin, and it just makes me feel good. So I think there's lots of positive ways. We're a wonderful adaptive species. There's lots of positive ways we're dealing with it. We're spending more time with the people we love. We're telling them we love them. We're making our feelings explicit. And this is a positive way to deal with your vulnerability. Yeah, we all feel more vulnerable. And I think this is a real positive way to deal with your vulnerability, which is to reach for other people and have that connection. And I do see people doing that. I do.
Well, here's a sort of an add-on to what you're saying, which I think leads to a good question anyway, is that, you know, you've said that with your neighbor, you know, you've put on the Post-it notes and you're kind of inviting her out, but, you know, there's a lot of people that are going to be in self-isolation with families, which is wonderful. But then what about the people that are having to self-isolate and they're on their own, right?
I think it is true that some of us are more vulnerable. The most vulnerable of us are people who are on their own and who also do not feel emotionally connected to others. You know, it's one thing to live alone and to still have this inner sense that you matter to other people, to have your children calling you, to have your neighbor calling you, to see your neighbor over the fence, to feel like you exist in another person's mind. That's one thing. It's another thing if you're living alone and physical distance translates into emotional distance, and you don't feel like you matter to someone else. You're not sure you're in someone else's mind. You feel like, you know, you don't matter to another. We need to matter to other people. We need to have that inner sense. It literally, it is biology. This isn't sentimentality. It calms our nervous system down, right? It's like, you know, just like a child and a mother. It can't, this is what attachment science tells us. It calms our nervous system down. So the most vulnerable of all are the people who not only are physically alone, but also don't have that sense of emotional connection. And I think we are in this pause from our busy life, from the things we think are so important to us all the time, you know, making it in the world. And I hope in this pause that we look around us and we see who these people are, you know, who are these people? The lady over the road actually said to me, I tried to say something about emotional connection. Of course I did. I'm a crazy relationship obsessed researcher and clinician. And she said, oh, it's okay, Sue dear. My son calls me, my son who doesn't live in the city calls me every day. I said, ah, okay. And she said, and my neighbor who I can't go out to coffee with has come over and sits in the garden sometimes. So she's really telling me I don't have this sense of aloneness that cripples people, okay? To really feel emotionally isolated and alone is crippling. It drives us crazy, literally. I mean, it's, so, you know, this vulnerable time, our awareness of our vulnerability it can lead us to reach other people, to be aware of our need, to spend more time connecting, or it can take us in the other direction. Did you see in the New York Times on Sunday, I loved what the mayor of New York City said. He said that he'd been talking to his daughter in a new way, and he'd had more in-depth conversations since this started. And, you know, he said he thinks that since this started, he's had the best conversations with her ever. I thought that was kind of a beautiful comment. But yeah, those people are particularly alone, and emotional isolation kills us. Basically, it kills us. And we're starting to understand that one of the big enemies of, never mind the virus, one of the big enemies, the epidemic we have to deal with in our society is loneliness.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, another question that kind of comes up from that is, you know, what about relationships that are not in a good place? And now you are having to isolate yourselves with your family and with that other person. And in the end, if it's not a relationship that's working well, you know, what can they do? I mean,
well, that's a tricky one. And, you know, it is true that in China, once this started happening, filing for divorce went through the roof. And there is some concerns in North America about domestic abuse going up, right? The bottom line is, there's two things that happen there, I think. One is, in this situation of threat, we're all more anxious. You're more easily triggered. You know, your anxiety is more, you're more sensitive, you're more easily triggered. And I think the other thing is, in this situation of threat and stress, we're all much more aware of how much we need other people. Threat and stress just turns on all our needs for connection. We know how much then we need other people to survive. So if suddenly you're in a relationship and you're worried about your job, you're worried, you feel scared, you know, your best friend got the virus and you're scared for her, and then you're really aware of how much you need to talk to somebody and get some comfort, and you turn to your partner, and, you know, they don't look like comfort and a source of support. They look like more danger and isolation. Then, yeah, that's right. Then your relationship starts to get worse. You know, you become more demanding, or you become more shut down and withdrawn to kind of frost this person out, and relationships start to go wrong. We know that. We know that stress can either pull people together or it can push people apart. And for sure, there's going to be couples having a hard time right now. And for me, you know, then what comes up for me is, okay, how can we help them? What can we do? You know, and that's a tricky one. You know, I think for some couples who are in this situation, it can kind of act like a wake-up call, and they can start to kind of turn towards each other and listen to those needs and maybe take risks for each other and learn how to reconnect. And for other couples, yeah, it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for, I really am alone in this relationship. And I don't know what to do about that. We've got to do something, you know, I don't know what to do. So yeah, there's so much going on here, you know, on an emotional and relational level, not just on a, do I have the virus, do I have my hand sanitizer level? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a very, very good point. Well, I don't have any other questions myself at this point.
You don't have any other questions, Frederic?
Well, I mean, I do, but I'm thinking maybe we should open up the floor and see if anyone on this call would like to ask any questions.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to people. That's the whole point of doing this, actually.
Okay.
Not for us to chat, because we do that all the time, but I'd love to talk to people.
I did see a question that came up earlier about blended families, and I'm wondering if that person, because there's so many people on here, I can't see you. If you don't mind unmuting yourself, feel free to ask the question.
I don't think I'm muted.
Oh, I
don't
think
think I'm muted.
Oh, it could be, yes.
Danielle.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Nice to talk to you. What
Yeah,
would you
nice
like
to
to
talk to you.
ask?
So I've got a couple that they've been highly escalated in the past, but they were in about step 5 or 6 recently before the pandemic, and they have a blended family. He had 2 kids before they got together, and there's just such different, I guess, styles of dealing with stuff. Hold on, Kinley, please. And so the other family, the ex-wife, doesn't believe a lot of the dangers that are happening. She's taking it out. And so then they've got a new baby at home, and it's brought up the cycle because the husband doesn't want to stop seeing his kids, but the wife is afraid the baby is going to get it.
Oh, wow. That's, yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. And I got you. That's right. So then the husband's between a rock and a hard place.
Mm-hmm.
He's staying with his new family. He's saying, you know, right, I, you know, you're right, you know, this is a risk. But he doesn't want to miss his kids.
Yes.
That's interesting. See, it's so interesting because I've seen couples, if they could really listen to each other and talk to each other, my sense is that that's not a hard one in lots of ways. I mean, he could FaceTime his kids. He could go, you know, and see his kids from a distance. He could, his other kids, right, to protect the baby. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you could deal with it. But what's interesting is people get stuck. They get stuck in their dance together. You know, if she starts to get angry with him and demanding, then he feels caught between his first family and this one. Then he shuts down. They're off to the races. It's going to get bad. So what would we do? What we do if they were in a session with us, or, hey, all my therapy's online right now. What I'd do if they were online with me, you know, is I'd try to move them into what we call a hold me tight conversation. I try to create some safety and say, what happens when you guys talk about this? Oh, I see, you get stuck in this dance where you feel like he's not hearing you, so you start shouting. And as minute she starts shouting, you feel like you're being asked to abandon your first kids, and you shut down and move away, and then you get stuck. So let's play with that. And we start talking about how the dance makes it hard for them to talk about this, right? And to create a solution. And then shared vulnerability pulls people closer, right? Not always, of course, but if you can create enough safety, it creates bonds. So I would ask her, I talk about what that fear was like for her around the baby. I talk about what happens to her when he doesn't seem to hear her. It must be very threatening for her as a new mom. Hey, sweetheart. Hi, sweetie. Hi. I'm a crazy lady on a screen. Hi, aren't you beautiful? It must be very threatening for her. She must be very scared when she feels like he doesn't hear her, and she's scared for her baby. So I try to get her to talk about her fear, not about what she wants him to do. And I try to help him hear that fear, right? Because my experience with couples is if she can express that vulnerability clearly in a way that doesn't threaten him, and you can help him hear it, right? They've got some help with you, that's wonderful. Then they move to a whole new place. They create safety together, and they can start to hear each other, and they can get creative solutions, right? So interesting question though, classic. You have a very sweet, look at this little one here.
She is the best. I get love all day long.
That's really interesting. That was a good question. Thank you for that. It's really interesting.
Thank
Nice
you.
to talk to you. And to you, sweetheart. Nice to talk to you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Yeah.
All right, Sue, I have another question here, anonymously here. So
Anonymously, okay.
Yes, a number of medical staff I know are isolating themselves from their families or partners due to the fear of bringing the virus home and
Yes.
passing it on to their partners. If relationships are already stressed, and this is a time of stress, there is potential this could further damage the relationship. How should
Yes.
partners respond to this? And one partner may be sleeping in another room and having no physical contact.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very difficult. I know that I would be very scared if my husband was a doc and was in a hospital right now. I would be very scared, and it would be very hard for me if he was downstairs in the house and I would be upstairs. What I know is that the only way I think that I could deal with that well and have the relationship deal with it well is for us to agree on how we can have emotional contact. So can we FaceTime at a set time every day? The sort of things that we've done with soldiers at war and their partners. We've worked over the years with a lot of vets and soldiers on deployment. Can they FaceTime at a certain point in time? Can they send each other little messages? I know bonding's amazing. You can turn on that sense of safety in a second. It's a survival strategy, so your nervous system is always ready for it. I can remember when I was scared, when I was an adolescent, I used to call my dad. Have big phones those days, and all he really needed to do was I needed to hear his voice, and I needed him to call me the special name he called me, which for some reason, don't ask me why, I don't know, he always called me Squiggleplip. I have no idea where that came from. And it's really a stupid word, Squiggleplip. What on earth does it mean? But when I would hear his voice and he would call me that would be really all I needed. I mean, it would be, then he could say, it's raining. And so I think those couples need to talk about how to keep their emotional connection. Maybe a time every day. Maybe if I was a wife in that situation and my partner was in danger, I would need them to talk to me when they came home from a shift, and for them to share with me what was the shift like, what was it like, do they feel safe, what are they doing to keep themselves safe. so that you can keep the emotional connection. I mean, basically our experience in the last 30 years of research on relationships is that if you can keep that emotional connection alive, you know, the bond stays, it's a living thing, like watering a plant, the bond stays viable. It's when you lose that emotional connection that things start to go off the rails.
Okay, so I have another question here from Bella. Bella, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, that'd be wonderful.
I wonder where Bella is. Bella's maybe not unmuting. No, you could ask Bella's question.
I'll ask Bella's question. How's that?
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, hi, Bella. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. My question is regarding the uncertainty that we are living all. How do you deal with the couples that they are arguing and they are fighting because of that emotion?
Well, I think if I was helping a couple like that, I would try to help people get more specific. Okay, just to give you one sense of what's happening, right? One reaction to what you're saying is, what we know is that when emotions are general, like uncertainty, right? When people give abstract labels like uncertainty, or when emotions are big and general, they are overwhelming. And couples, they don't tune into each other. They miss the point. They can't listen to each other. Then they feel, you're not listening to me, you don't care, and everything goes wrong. It helps a lot if you can help people get real specific. Like I might say to one of the people in that couple, could you help me? When is it that you feel most off balance right now about this whole virus thing? When is it, what is it that is really, really pushes you off balance and scares you? And she might say, well, it's because I think about my mother all the time and the fact that she's in this nursing home. And I'm so scared about what's going to happen to her. And I try to talk to him, and all he says is, it's fine, it's fine. And he changes the subject. And I say, so you don't feel like he understands how scared you are. And I help them talk about specific emotions, right? Could you tell him, I spend all day obsessed worrying that I've somehow let my mother down, and that, you know, that she's in this nursing home, and I'm so worried about her, and I feel helpless. And the other thing is that once you get specific, the other person kind of knows how they can help. If the other person says, okay, I didn't know you were worried all the time, and I thought I was being helpful by just saying it's fine. And she says, no, that doesn't help me. And then he can say, well, what do you need, right? And this is basically a hold me tight conversation. What do you need? Exactly. And she says, I need you to just hear me. We think our partners need us to fix everything, to come up with a solution. And mostly that's not what our partners need. We are the solution. Our partners just need, they just need us to hear it. So, the number of times I've worked with a couple where somebody like this lady would say, I just need you to hear that I'm scared, and I somehow feel bad that I'm letting her down, right? And I feel scared, and like there's nothing I can do, and I just need you to hear me and hold me. And the other person says, really?
Yeah, that's true.
What you need? No, I think you're telling me to fix it, and I don't know how to fix it. And she's, no, I don't need you to fix it. There's no fix, right? I just need you to be with me in my fear. The solution for us as bonding animals so many times when in uncertainty is just for another person to be with us. That is the solution. It's not, but if the spouse thinks like, well, she's talking to me all the time, and what does she think I'm going to do? I can't do anything, you know, and the best thing I can do is just try to cut it off. Then the other person's alone with their fear, right? So it's the first thing I would do with that is take uncertainty, which is a big, huge thing, and say, you know, what do you mean? What do you mean? Let's get specific here. And what's the emotion that you have that you want your husband or your partner to come and help you with, right? That makes everything sort of manageable. You know, you sort of shrink everything down, right? It's interesting, I mean, for people to think, what is the scariest thing in this crisis? I realized the other day when I was out in my garden, is the scariest thing for me to get infected? And yes, that's scary. And it's scary for me to think about infecting, you know, my family. But actually, what is the scariest thing for me? The scariest thing for me is to think about my husband getting infected.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And, you know, and so then I talk to him about that. So then I have to say to him, you know, when you go out for groceries, you know, I'm basically wandering around the house trying to do tasks to distract myself from the fact that you're out from groceries. And so maybe we need to talk about all the things that you do when you go grocery shopping to make yourself safe, because otherwise, you know, I'm aware that this is scary for me. You know, and there are medical reasons for that too, apart from the fact I've been married for 30 years, right? But there are medical reasons that he's vulnerable, right? So when he's out for groceries, that uncertainty becomes, instead of just being here on the side as a piece of music, it's like a rock concert, you know, coming at me, right? And that's, so it helped a lot when he said, I wear gloves, I stay away from people, you know, I wear gloves and I take the gloves off, you know, and then I put hand sanitizer on, and then so I needed to hear all this, right? So that's an interesting question, because we're all living with such uncertainty right now. We are. And nobody can, you know, even things like people say to me, well, somebody said it's all going to end. Somebody said it's going to be over by the summer. You know, I have colleagues who say things like, are you going to come and do a big workshop, you know, in Seattle in September? You know, and I say, I don't know.
No, nobody knows.
And that's scary in itself. We don't like that. I don't know. You know, but so I think, yeah, I think uncertainty, it's not just straight fear of getting infected or people we love, but it's the general uncertainty that puts us all off balance. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for answering.
You're most welcome. Okay, how are we doing, Freddie?
Well, I think we're good. I'm, you know, just because of time, I think there's two questions I'd like to end with. One of them is from a number of therapists that are actually on the call, and the question that they're asking is, what do you say to all the therapists who are giving so much support and being affected themselves?
Ah, right. Well, I say that I feel for you, and that people really need your empathy and your attunement, and also that you need to take care of you. You need to talk to your loved ones. You need to make sure you have things in your day that make you feel calm. I can relate a little in that I'm doing therapy online right now, but I'm also giving talk, I'm teaching, I'm looking at a screen, talking so much, I almost get hoarse by the end of the day. And what I'm aware of is, when I start to feel depleted, I walk out into my garden and I do something stupid like dig up a dandelion or look at a bush that I've just planted and imagine how it's going to grow. So I know that this changes, this calms me, this takes me to a different place. I go and pat my puppy, even if she bites me. I think you have to take care of you, and you have to be real with people. I have said no to things in the last little while. One client is used to long sessions with me, and I've said to that client, do you think for the next little while that we could just do an hour session, because I'm finding that I'm getting exhausted, talking to a screen, and my throat's getting sore, and it's getting hard for me. And she said, yes, of course we can do that. I said, thank you so much. So I think being able to say no sometimes and take care of you, and also just feeling okay about doing what you can do, knowing how important your comfort and your listening is to your clients, or to, just like it is to your friends and to the people you love, knowing that, and that you are giving a gift just by being there, that you don't have to suddenly miraculously shift everybody's fear and uncertainty. You're not going to be able to do that, right? We're all in the same boat right now. Hopefully we recognize that and all start rowing together. That would be wouldn't that be a good thing to come, out of this crisis? So yeah, taking care of yourselves is a key one. And also knowing resources for your clients. In the last little while, I've said to some of my couples, right now, maybe I know you've got my book, Hold Me Tight. Maybe you should read it again and do some of the exercises together. You have the time. Or, maybe you want to look at our Hold Me Tight online program. We've got it, it's online, and we've made it incredibly cheap for people right now because we want people to access it. You could do Hold Me Tight online together. In other words, I'm saying, you need more than me. You need more than me right now. So there's other resources out there, right?
So, Sue, a very personal question has been asked, and this person is willing to share. So I thought we would go out to her at this point. Leslie, are you able to unmute yourself?
I am. Thank you, Frederic.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Dr. Johnson. What an honor. Thank you so much.
Just call me Sue.
Okay. Thank you so very much. My question was, I've been separated for a very long time. I'm in the Houston area, and we were hit by Harvey back in 2017. But to kind of cut to the chase, my husband was diagnosed with bipolar in 2014. It had been missed for a long time, and I'm not even sure that was a correct diagnosis. But I'm going to kill the glasses in a minute because I'm probably going to cry, but I don't have a problem with that. And I just wanted to be very open and appreciate your time. It has been suspected that he has borderline personality disorder. I'm seeing a fabulous therapist. We're doing it via very secure Zoom.
Yeah.
For the therapists out there, one thing I can tell you is because she's a DBT therapist and certified, they have to have their own therapist to stay regulated. And I went to her because of what I suspected with my husband, and she's also able to work with family members as well. This has been a tough one. He left. We've been going back and forth trying to reconcile, and as I've learned more about borderline, it's all matching up. I have not heard from him in almost 2 months now. And his father died 3 weeks ago, and it's heart-wrenching. I mean, we've been separated 2.5 years, so I was doing the isolation thing pretty well, got it down pretty good, but just worried about him. There's a history of suicide in his family, so kind of at a loss.
Leslie, I hear how hard that is for you, okay? And could you help me? I mean, if you try to reach out to him, if you try to reach out I don't know, on the telephone or on the computer or on your iPhone, he doesn't reply? Is that what's happening?
There's no response. Maybe a week before his dad died, voicemail was full, and I hadn't reached out in about it, so I knew something's wrong. I will say that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you live near him?
He's about 32 miles away. He's with his 88-year-old mother.
Right.
There's a lot of enmeshment with the family.
So what I hear is that part of you really want to know, you really want him to know that whatever's happened, that he's important to you. I'm getting that he's important to you. You want him to know that, and you care, and you're getting worried. So I don't know, but you know, I would try to reach him every way I knew. And you know, or even to get somebody, I don't know if he's got family.
I tried a friend of his, and he shut me out too, because this happened in February of 2017 when I was out of state on business and couldn't reach him. And this friend came over to the house to check. So
you're feeling completely cut off, right?
Completely.
That is so hard. That is so hard. I mean, you have a therapist. I would help that you're trying for her with that. Hope you have other people that are there for you that can listen to you with that. But that is so hard. And I'm not sure, you know, what you can do with your relationship with him. The only thing that
right now
is just to send him messages saying, you won't talk to me, and I want you to know that I'm here and I'm worried about you, and whatever's happened to us in the past, I want you to know that I'm worried about you, and I do wish that you would just call me and tell me you're okay. I mean, I think that's all you can do. That's all you can do here, right?
If I could ask you something, I have a lot of support through Al-Anon. There's alcoholism in my family and his family as well. And the information being given to me is because he's stonewalling is to ignore him and leave him alone and not reach out, because he'll watch my actions and not listen to my words. And that the more I reach out, the longer he'll stonewall. And I'd rather hear advice from you.
Leslie, I have a particular perspective, okay? From all my research and all my working with couples and all my work, I'm afraid I would never tell anyone not to reach out. I really would never say that. And what I'm hearing is that you need to reach out and you want to reach out. Yeah.
I just want him to know that I still love him, and I have sent him some messages. I left him a message on Easter.
I think that's brave of you. I don't know you, but I get that's honest. That's you speaking from your heart. That's brave. That's who you are right now. And you're giving him the only gift you can give him, which you want to give him. So to tell someone not to reach, I'm sorry, that's just a general piece of advice from some theoretical point of view. It's not about Leslie and about your relationship with this man. So if you want to reach, and it's all you can do. And if I was in your situation, I'd reach too. And it seems to me that takes courage. And I respect you for that, for your desire to reach. It sounds like you've been through a lot of pain with this, and I respect you for that. That's, yeah, that's right. And, you know, and maybe he'll hear it. You can't, in the end, it's his choice whether to hear it or not, okay? Right. And who knows why he's shutting it out. But in the end, maybe that's his way of dealing with losing you. But in the end, that's his choice. But, you know, you're doing what you want to do, which is calling to him and saying, you still matter to me. And I think that's a very human, very heartfelt, very real thing for you to do. So that's what I would say. Thank you for being so open and sharing here. You're sharing something that's very, very difficult.
I really appreciate it. And actually, I've got someone who's going to get me some N95 masks. So I was going to get that in hand sanitizer and send it to him as a care package.
Hey,
a lot of damage done during the relationship because I just didn't know
that's
that
beautiful.
I was invalidating him completely.
Leslie, that's beautiful. That's beautiful that you would do that. That's beautiful that you would do that. You're reaching out to him. What a good idea. I'm suggesting you trust your heart here. I'm suggesting you trust your heart. It's okay to listen to professionals, but you know what? You know what's real for you, and you know your husband, and never mind all these labels. You don't know him as labels. What's his name?
His name is Rick.
You know Rick. So
Yes.
never mind all these labels from therapists. He's a human being, and he matters to you, and you've gone through a lot of things, and you're telling him, you still matter to me, here I am, and that's a gift. And that's a gift you have to give. And I think, go for it. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you. It's hard to share with someone you don't know online. That's incredible.
Oh no, this was actually quite easy. I've been Zooming a lot of Al-Anon meetings, and honestly, I can't wait to tell my therapist when we Zoom on Saturday. I talked to the Dr. Sue Johnson, and will blow her away. I wish there were more
I talked to Sue. You just
talk to
say,
Sue.
I talked to Sue.
Who knows? Maybe she's on this Zoom. I wouldn't be surprised.
So please take care of you. Okay.
I will.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for this. I appreciate it more than you know.
You're welcome. Okay.
All right.
So Freddie, I have a feeling that you want me to close, don't you?
Well, yes, I think we will do that. We will close out now. So I really appreciate everybody who was on this call. And Leslie, thank you. A lot of courage being able to share in this format as well. But just as sort of a last point, I mean, we are going to do another one of these. We will let you know. But
in fact, we're supposed to do a whole bunch of them. If they're fun, we're going to do them a whole bunch. And this one's been fun. And I really appreciate everyone tuning in, and I appreciate all your questions.
So Sue, the last thing for you, I mean, if people wanted more resources, where would they go at this point?
Well, of course, what I'm going to suggest is from the stuff that we've been doing all these years. They'd go and they'd read my book, Hold Me Tight, or my other book for the public, Love Sense. They'd go to my website, which I'm a bit reluctant to say because it's just a new one's just about to go up. We've redone my website, but my old one's still there. And, I'd go and I'm all over YouTube. You can look at me talking on YouTube about relationships. If you want to go do online therapy with your partner, I'd go and look on our site, ICEEFT, www.ICEEFT.com, and find the Center for Emotionally Focused Therapy, which is the crazy stuff we do in your area, and try to find yourself an EFT therapist who will come from the same place that I come from in terms of seeing relationships. And if you don't want to do any of that, and you have a partner and you have time, which I haven't had a lot of time since this started actually, but if you have time, you can do our educational program, Hold Me Tight Online, and we've just cut the price enormously because we want it to be available to people. So there are resources out there. And the bottom line is, I mean, it's a concrete thing that I'm saying, but what I'm really main message I'm trying to give here is that this situation is reminding us all that the most basic thing we are is bonding human beings, and that how much we need each other. And maybe we can turn that into a positive thing. I do hope that when this is all done, that we still hold on to that awareness. I hope so. So, but this has been fun.
It has. It has. And so I will let everybody know too that this has been recorded so that it will be made available later. We'll figure this out in terms of when this will be available to watch again. And we will be setting another date and time for another Off the Cuff with Dr. Sue Johnson.
Yes, we haven't quite decided how often to do it, but if you keep being really amusing and funny, Freddie, then I'll agree to meet with you regularly. Okay, is that the deal?
All right. Check mark on my list. Amusing and funny, and we're good to go.
All right. Nice to talk to everyone. I appreciate everyone who tuned in. Stay safe. Stay connected. Stay safe.